2022 is coming to an end. It's been good. It's been bad. It's been happy. It's been sad. It's been everything. I'm just grateful to still be a part of this thing called life. I'm sitting here in the room. I'm listening to fireworks. And we're not supposed to be shooting fireworks in my neighborhood, but we do it every year anyway. So after 1,300 days, 5 officers have been indicted. 5 of them. There should have been 20 of them, in my opinion, but 5 of them have been indicted. Corey York, who previously received a 50-hour suspension, is the only officer that is looking at a negligent homicide, which I think is grossly insufficient for what happened that night. He's facing up to 5 years for hog tying, dragging a man face down in the dirt, leaving him face down for 9 minutes until he died. Didn't render any sort of aid, no CPR, no nothing. And he's facing a negligent homicide after it is understood that he was beaten, tased, hogtied, drugged, and left to die. The district attorney from Lincoln and Union Parishes, John Belton, stated earlier this year, "I'm just waiting on the file from the DOJ. Once I get that, I will convene a grand jury." This is the result of the grand jury after 3+ years. 1 negligent homicide charge for Corey York. That's it. The other officers got a malfeasance and obstruction, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, negligent homicide for Corey York is grossly insufficient for what occurred that night, what was seen on that footage. Even a blind man can see he was brutally murdered. Why wasn't there at least a manslaughter charge, a 2nd-degree murder, something that fits what happened that night? Because negligent homicide does not fit what is on that body cam by no stretch of the imagination. But I can't say that I'm shocked by it, because if it takes 3+ years just to get an indictment, that right there is a problem. That is a problem. But recall earlier this year when Representative Nelson asked District Attorney John Belton, "Do you have any proof that states that the DOJ asked you not to proceed with this state case?" And he started rambling about, "I don't have that, but what I do have on my phone is the text message from the current DOJ official, Brandon Brown, who told him he could go forward with the charges." But no one asked you about the current DOJ official that told you could go forward. You were questioned about the DOJ official that asked you not to proceed. And if you weren't paying close attention, you wouldn't have caught it, that he answered the question by saying that, "I don't have that, but I got this." He was asked about the DOJ official that requested that he not move forward, and he answered talking about the DOJ official that told him to move forward. In my opinion, he was being dishonest. But I understand that now he's running for Attorney General. So now we have a little something that's not good enough, a negligent homicide, up to 5 years. But all of the other officers who conveniently destroyed their phones, when Triet Lee, the Louisiana State Police technical support person, testified during the special committee earlier this year, he testified that he sanitized the phones of Doug Kane, Mike Noel, and maybe some others, right? And that was an interesting use of the word sanitize, because sanitize sounds like, well, something good happened. Something was dirty and it was cleaned. But what happened was data was erased from those phones. They were destroying text messages. But is anything ever really erased? It was my understanding that you can subpoena phone carriers for text messages and other information as long as you have the phone number. Drop down in the comments and tell me if I'm wrong about that. The cover-up started from the very beginning with the very head of state government, the governor, John Bel Edwards, in my opinion. He couldn't afford for black voters to know the truth. He didn't want black voters to know what really happened. Would black voters vote for him if they knew he was okay with an unarmed motorist being dragged out of a car after he had already surrendered? His hands were already up. And he was beaten. That's his blood on the badge of one of the officers who killed him. That's his blood on that badge. Would black voters be okay if they knew he was beaten, tased, hogtied, and dragged across the ground, left face down for 9 minutes until he died? Would black voters be okay with that? There were 3 black officers who were in the top 3 positions in Louisiana State Police, not when this happened, but after it happened, who were privy to information. And I'll say that one of them tried. And I'll say 2 of them, their integrity remains to be seen. But he had already surrendered before the officer even placed his hand on the handle. But John Bel Edwards needed to be reelected. And that's all that mattered. That's what mattered. If you have any doubt that there was a cover-up in this case, I'll give you one example. Think about the coroner's office and their role when someone dies in a situation like this. Earlier this year, the coroner's office testified there was Angie Hollis, Renee Smith, and Dr. Terry O'Neill. I'll never forget that day. Angie Hollis was the coroner investigator that got the call in the middle of the night, around 2 o'clock or so in the morning, that there was a decedent. And she went to the hospital because that's her role. She investigates. She said she got there. At first, she couldn't remember if there was a state trooper there or not. And then she later said, yeah, I think there was one officer there. She said she saw his body. She couldn't remember if she put a toe tag on or one on his wrist. But she identified him. And, I guess, I don't know how much time it takes to write a name out and this sort of thing, right? But she put an identification on his body. Well, there are no documents from the coroner's office about Ronald Green any place. They can't find them. There's no paper documents. There's no documents electronically about this particular decedent. Drop down in the comments and tell me what you think it is. Do you think that the coroner investigator didn't create any documents? Or do you think that the documents were created, but now they have been destroyed? Because at the very least, the investigator should have documented, I arrived at this time. I have identified the decedent. This is the condition of his body. He is in a body bag. I have turned over his remains to XYZ. They are en route to Little Rock, Arkansas. And, put the time there. So at the very least, that should have been done. But she doesn't recall if she even did that. Which one is it? Did she not do any documentation? Or is she lying about that? Or has the documentation been destroyed? Which one is it? So we'll see what February brings. Y'all like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel. Happy New Year. I gotta go. I gotta get dressed. Talk to you soon.